George Galloway, and the mother of all talk shows. Welcome to the Open University of the Airwaves with George Galloway.
Donald Trump is a big fat zero. Not literally, I mean in the public opinion polls. He has finally reached zero in terms of approval ratings. Last month he was at +7. It seems the war in Iran and the walking away of the Epstein files has done for his remaining popularity. And the MAGA movement continues to buckle and splinter apart. Alex Jones, the latest to jump from the leaking ship. Speaking of leaking ships, the ships are going down in the Red Sea like Billy-O. 2 in 2 days. I don't know why anyone trading with Israel would dare risk the wrath of the People's Forces of the Yemen, but they still continue to do so. I'm glad I'm not insuring them. Headless babies, including the unborn, are continuing to be pulled from the rubble in Gaza as the carnage continues. And what exactly was Benjamin Netanyahu doing in 2 whole days in the White House? Well, devils never congregate for good, so fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night here on the mother of all talk shows. Stay.
Curious about our curriculum? Have something to say? Then call us now to join the debate on the mother of all talk shows. The only education you can get for free. George Galloway, the mother of all talk shows. With George Galloway, the world is our classroom, and you're welcome to sit in and join the seminar.
Well, the biggest show in town is the no-show of the Epstein files. And my goodness, the reverberations are rocking the Washington political establishment. Perhaps not as much as the release of the files would have rocked them, although that's beginning to be a close call, because it's unlikely that Donald Trump's administration will survive unbroken by the decision of the president and the vice president and the attorney general and the chief of the FBI that Jeffrey who, that there's no case to answer, leaving now, on the face of it, an innocent woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, whose father I knew well in a penitentiary in the United States for trafficking children for sexual purposes to no one at all. It is an almighty mess, compounded by the asinine behavior of President Trump himself in response at the cabinet meeting yesterday to an obvious question about the abandonment of the Epstein files case. He basically said, Jeffrey who, he basically said that the man that he had such close relationships with over a whole decade was now a forgotten person. Memory hold. But the public doesn't seem to agree. The overwhelming likelihood that Epstein was at the center of a major domestic and international espionage scandal, entrapping dirty men for videoing of their sexual predilections and peccadillos. The overwhelming likelihood that that involved Israel was not stilled by the fact that the abandonment of the case took place on the very day that Netanyahu made his 3rd visit to the White House in just 6 months, with some saying yet another meeting is still to come. The overwhelming likelihood is that Jeffrey Epstein, who had spy cameras in every single room of his mansion in Manhattan, controlled by a central control room, where the FBI took hundreds and hundreds of hard drives, DVDs, CDs, and Polaroids, no doubt. But they've all disappeared. There are no Epstein files. There is no case, which must come as a huge disappointment to Jeffrey Epstein if he's still alive, because he's gone and done all of that for nothing. It turns out there's no case against him, that he trafficked nobody to nobody. It turns out that the likelihood of additional prosecutions was zero. It turns out that the material seized from the Manhattan townhouse was so innocent it might have been Peppa Pig rather than what we thought it was. The overwhelming likelihood of Jeffrey Epstein working for both domestic and Middle Eastern intelligence, and that the cameras were to collect compromise on rich and powerful individuals on their way up or on their way down, is so obvious that a blind man can see it. And American public opinion is now voting with its feet, or rather its opinion poll answers, when asked if Trump's administration has handled this the right way. It's not helped by the fact that Donald Trump literally campaigned for the presidency on the release of the Epstein files. It's not helped that Kashpatel, the chief of the FBI, repeatedly stated that he was going to bust this case wide open. It's not helped by the fact that the Attorney General Bondi said that she had the files on her desk, the files that she now claims do not exist. It's not helped by the fact that sundry influencers were called to the White House and given binders of part 1 of the Epstein investigation. That's what it said on the front. Part 1, ineluctably implying there would be a part 2 at least. And it turns out those binders were absolutely empty. Binders full of nothing. Well, if you believe that, I've got a bridge here in London. You may have seen it in our beautiful new title sequence that I could sell you going cheap. Nobody believes it. Steve Bannon doesn't believe it. Roger Stone doesn't believe it. Alex Jones doesn't believe it. Jack Posso doesn't believe it. Tucker Carlson doesn't believe it. Nobody who was anybody in the insurgency that propelled Donald Trump back to power believes it. And least of all, Elon Musk doesn't believe it. And he, in his new America Party, is going to profit mightily from it. It's not just about the sex. Though I have on my phone, I don't know how many messages, I lost count of them, from one of Epstein's victims living in Europe, who contacted me over and over and over and over and over again yesterday, worried out of her mind that they are still out to get her, as they got to Virginia Giuffre, as they may very well get to anyone who might have evidence that can lead to the explosion of this sordid case. But it's not just about the sex. Powerful men have been predating on young women and have been collecting information about other powerful men predating on young women for millennia. It could be put down to just dirty men. It's the espionage, stupid. It's the fact that it was being filmed for a foreign power, and that foreign power seems to hold not just overweening but overwhelming power in the citadels of Washington, D.C., on the Capitol Hill, in the White House, and in the three-letter agencies, the so-called deep state. That power that they wield is otherwise inexplicable, because public opinion is marching overwhelmingly, even in the United States, against the never-ending wars that country, Israel, has dragged the United States into, against the never-ending cascade of cash and weapons and shilling that is the United States today in relation to Israel. Public opinion is marching in the opposite direction to the march of the oligarchs and the march of the political class in Washington. Why would that be? Well, we already know about people we've never heard of even in the United States, receiving millions of dollars from the Israel lobby to keep their political careers buoyant. I'm thinking of Randy Fine. You don't get more buoyant than Congressman Randy Fine, but there are many, many others whose names are unknown even to me, a political junkie. But it's not just about the cash. It's about the compromise. You see, if you've been invited by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to a townhouse in Manhattan, or to a sex island in the Caribbean, or to a ranch in Arizona, or to a mansion house in the Florida Keys, and you are filmed sexually abusing and raping underage girls that Maxwell and Epstein have provided for you, you are done. You are trussed up like a kipper. Not only your career will be over if that compromise is released, your marriage will be over. Your children will shun you and spit upon your memory. Your neighbors will turn their backs away. No one will ever again want to know you, interview you, let alone vote for you. When somebody's got that kind of compromise on you, if they say bend over, you for sure are going to have to bend over. And what, if not bending over, is the United States doing with Benjamin Netanyahu? A man deeply unpopular in his own country, a man for whom an international arrest warrant for crimes against humanity, war crimes, is extant, a man who's supposed to be arrested on sight by the so-called rules-based international order 3 times in 6 months. I've seen Trump with Netanyahu more often than I've seen him with Melania over the last 6 months. And this time, with no press conference, this time with no address to Congress, this time is the most mysterious time of all. As I saw them gathered together, Netanyahu on one side, Trump looking distinctly peaky on the other, not so much the orange man as the purple man, a man prematurely orange, a man prematurely sunburnt, fake sunburnt, sitting uncomfortably opposite him. I got to wondering what it was exactly these fiends were planning. The 1C conference in Germany must have looked something like that gathering yesterday. The 1C conference, when the final solution of the Jewish question was being resolved by Hitler's adjutants and minions. A conference. I've been in the building outside Berlin where the death camps were the concentration camp gas chambers, where the genocide, the Holocaust, the mass murder of millions of Jews was decided upon. So sensitive, they even minuted it carefully, but just not carefully enough. And many of the people at that conference were subsequently executed after the Nuremberg war crimes trials for crimes against humanity and are damned forever. I wondered if this was the 2025 edition of the 1C conference. I wondered if they were laying their ugly, devilish plans for a final solution of the Palestine question. I've got guests tonight who will have a point of view on that. I have my own suspicions. It might have been about that. It might have been another attack on Iran, or it might well have been both, given that both are inextricably linked issues. The one thing it wasn't about was the betterment of the American people. The one thing that it wasn't about was funneling state federal funds to Texas, where so many innocents were swept away in devastating floods just the other day. The one thing that it wasn't about was getting America back to work, getting the factories back into action, getting production, manufacturing, and all the other things that MAGA was supposed to be about. It wasn't about any of those things. It wasn't about the hunger crisis in America. And it wasn't even about the plummeting popularity of Donald Trump, whose idea of changing the law and running for a third presidential term are now as dead as the proverbial dead duck. In fact, Trump will be lucky to finish this presidential term. Trump's family, who must have dreamed of a Trump dynasty in American politics, must now be looking to their portfolios for something else to do with the rest of their lives. The one good thing about American presidential politics is that there's always another presidential election along in a minute. And there is along in a minute. Coming up, the final reckoning of Donald Trump after the bombshell of the failure of the investigation into the Epstein files. We'll be talking to the judge, not just any judge, but Judge Andrew Napolitano, right after this short break, and you will not want to miss it. Stay tuned. As the green smoke rose, their faces flashed out, pallid green, and faded again as it vanished. Then slowly the hissing passed into a humming, into a long, loud, droning noise. Suddenly, a humped shape rose out of the pit, and the ghost of a beam of light seemed to flicker out after it. Forthwith, flashes of actual flame, a bright glare leaping from one to another, sprang from the scattered group of men. It was as if some invisible jet impinged upon them and flashed into white flame. It was as if each man were suddenly and momentarily turned to fire. I first realized that Trump's second term was going to bomb when he didn't appoint Judge Andrew Napolitano to the Supreme Court, and Colonel Douglas Macgregor to the Department of Defense. I knew it would be all downhill after that. And so it has proved. Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of Judging Freedom, is our first guest tonight. Your Honour, thank you for doing us this honour on this auspicious day of joining us on the mother of all talk shows. It's auspicious because Donald Trump reached rock bottom over the Epstein affair. Do you agree?
George, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. As you know, I am one of your biggest fans in the United States, on the planet, and it is indeed an honor and a pleasure to work with you. I just logged on early, so I was able to listen to your monologue in the past 15 minutes. I agree with everything you said. Everything you said. Donald Trump is right now at the lowest point of either presidency, and the indications are it's going to go lower. I can tell you why I think that will happen. But on the Epstein matter, Trump himself ordered the files released. A federal judge ordered the files released. The Attorney General ordered the FBI to combine the files and put them on her desk. As you pointed out, she said she had them on her desk. And now all of a sudden she claims that the files never existed. She will probably take the fall for this. I don't think the director of the FBI will. He's wedded at the hip to Trump. But I think Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who is not really qualified to be Attorney General, but she is a lawyer and she's a former state Attorney General of the state of Florida, I think she will probably take the fall. The MAGA reaction to this has been over the top, and it will begin to bubble and boil even more so in the next days and weeks to come.
I can't speak to the legal aspects, Your Honour, and that's why we're very glad that you're with us. But I can definitely speak to the quality of the political communications, because that's what I do. Right. I thought that the response by Trump at the cabinet meeting, when someone asked the Attorney General an innocent question about how, an obvious question about how this Epstein imbroglio had suddenly burst upon them, and Trump intervening in that asinine way, saying, I can't believe people are still talking about Jeffrey Epstein, when he and his whole MAGA movement never stopped talking about Jeffrey Epstein. What changed, do you think? What happened in the evidence bundle that persuaded them not to proceed?
I think that I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. I think Trump's name is on the list. I think Mossad knows it. I think Mossad told their American stenographer, who happens to be the director of the CIA, who takes down and regurgitates everything Mossad told him. And I think that stenographer whispered it into the president's ear. And he's terrified that this will come out because he knows it will be the beginning of the end, whether there's a Republican Congress or a Democrat Congress. That's what I honestly believe has happened. Now, obviously, I haven't seen the files. I can explain to you the way the system works. But when a federal judge orders that a document or a set of documents be preserved and published to the public, there is zero justification for it not happening. The president's reaction, you put your finger on it, George. I played that tape several times on my own show. The president's reaction was so personal, so defensive to attack the questioner that it was obvious he was terrified to have a truthful answer be given.
Now, the release thereafter of video supposedly of Epstein's cell on the fateful night has left more questions than it provided answers. And we now know that your high security prisons are covered by video technology that every single night goes off for a full minute. And we're asked to believe that this is normal. Now, we both know a lot can happen in a minute. A TV minute is an eternity. It's more than enough time for someone to go into a cell and whack someone, but it's equally enough time. I don't ask you to share this view with me, Judge, but I'm moving a little towards it. It's also enough time for someone to go in and walk the prisoner out of the cell. What's your feelings on the video?
Well, the video is absurd that they would have a system in this prison. This is where P. Diddy Combs is. I mean, this very, very high-profile prisoners who evoke very strong emotions amongst the public and even amongst the people guarding them. It's absurd that they would have an old-fashioned videotape system that has to go off for a minute while they rewind the tape and reuse the tape. I mean, this is back to the 70s, 50 years ago, the technology that they're using in this jail, if one is to believe them. But I would offer you this. The most highly respected pathologist in the United States is Dr. Michael Boden, B-A-D-E-N. I don't know if you've had Dr. Boden on. He is a personal friend of mine, but we became friends from his testimony before me in cases when I was on the bench. He frequently testifies for the government. That's how highly the government regards him on the time, place, and manner of death in either a wrongful death or a murder case. Dr. Boden was hired by Epstein's relatives, his family, to investigate his death, to perform another autopsy, and to examine the reports of the original government autopsy. And Michael Boden, the doctor the government trusts, has said it is impossible for him to have suffered the injuries he suffered by his own hand. It is against the laws of physics. It could only have been done by an outside force. That's what this 1 minute is hiding, what the outside force was. It was probably the same sophisticated people who compiled the list and who are threatening Trump. They know how to kill. They know how to kill quietly, permanently, quietly, effectively, and quickly. I'm sure that that's how it was done. I shouldn't say sure. I am confident that that's how it was done.
I've lived through this movie before, Judge. I played a small part in the downfall of Robert Maxwell, more or less the father-in-law of Jeffrey Epstein for some time, at least, some decades at least, and former employer of Jeffrey Epstein back in the day. And just when I was waiting for my day in court with Robert Maxwell, he disappeared off the end of a boat. And the question in everyone's mind was, did he jump or was he pushed? And if he was pushed, it's pretty obvious who pushed him. The people for whom he had been working and had been serving for many, many years. And he was subsequently, as you remember, buried with full state honors on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, with everybody who was anybody in the Israeli political scene, giving him the final send-off. Now, I have always believed, in common, I may say, with Ghislaine Maxwell, that Robert Maxwell was whacked rather than jumped. I take it from what you say that it's your view that Epstein also was whacked, and although we can't prove it, quite likely by the same people. I saw Epstein's brother speaking today. He laughed out loud when he heard Trump and co arguing that their brother had committed suicide. He's also totally convinced, and he was at the same autopsy, Judge.
The people that we're talking about are the most effective killers in the world. They all work for an entity that would benefit with the death of Robert Maxwell as well as the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell was himself an open and notorious asset of Mossad. He may very well have been a paid agent, even though he was a wealthy man. He may very well have been a paid agent of Mossad. There's no real dispute about that at all. That's historically well grounded. But they probably were executed not by the same human beings, but by the same forces that do these things for governments around the world.
Now, where does all this leave the aforementioned Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell's favorite child?
I am waiting for someone to go back before that federal judge in Brooklyn, New York, and say, Your Honor, you ordered the files released, and now the Attorney General said they were on her desk, and now she says they're not there. Can you use your power, Your Honor, to get to the bottom of it? She will if this is brought before her. In America, judges can only respond to applications before them. They can rarely act sua sponte on their own. But it is her order that began this series of events, which resulted in the Attorney General saying there is no list. And, kashpatel and Dan Bongino, I know them both. I know Bongino much better than I know Patel. They pounded and pounded and pounded away on this, and now they're the head of the FBI, and like two little puppy dogs with their tails caught between their legs, are saying what they know is untrue. They know is untrue, that the files don't exist. They've been told by their two bosses to say that. This is going to catch up with
what does this all mean?
Trump. Not so much because it's an untruth. But because he has, as you pointed out, and you ticked off the leadership of the MAGA movement in your previous segment, George, this has really and truly aggravated people who bled for Donald Trump, who did everything they could professionally, people mainly in the media, to bring about his second election. And this was number 1, 2, or 3 of the reasons. And now they've been so profoundly disappointed. This is not going to go away.
What does it mean for Elon Musk's America Party, in your view?
I share Musk's view that we need a third party because we have the uniparty, which is the pro-war, pro-welfare state, pro-surveillance state party. Pro-Israel. I mean, this is 90% of both houses of the American Congress speak as one voice on all those issues: wealth transfer, surveillance, perpetual war, give Israel whatever it wants, no matter what it does. It is ripe for a third party. Now, I'm not so sure that Musk is the right person to lead it. He certainly would be the right person to fund it. I wish that our mutual friend, Rand Paul, were 20 or 25 years younger. He'd be the ideal person at this point in time to take the mantle of the new party. Perhaps his successor in the House of Representatives, Thomas Massie, is the one to do it. Perhaps his son in the United States Senate, Senator Rand Paul, is the one to do it. But the time for a third party is ripe. Now the American public is fed up with perpetual war. 750 American military installations around the globe in 80 foreign countries, $1 trillion defense budget, larger than the defense budgets of the next 10 countries combined, which includes Russia, China, India, Iran, and Great Britain. The public is fed up with this. And now this may be the straw that's breaking the camel's back. Donald Trump has turned on his public. He is committing genocide in Gaza. He is refunding the war in Ukraine. He is about to start a war in Iran, and he is not telling the truth about Epstein. This will be enough to cause his own people to turn on him and move to a third party. The Republicans stand for nothing. All they do is stand for whatever he wants. The Democrats don't have a leader and don't have an issue. And then whenever there's a Democratic primary, the people farthest to the left are the ones that win. The time for a new third party is right now, George, right here, right now.
He's committing genocide abroad and suicide, political suicide at home. And of course, it isn't just on Epstein, as you just alluded, Your Honor. The words that he spoke about Russia yesterday, and we both have the honor of knowing the Foreign Minister Lavrov, one of the most sophisticated statesmen in the world. It was hard to believe that Trump was talking about him, that Trump was talking about the Russians whom he boasted he could get along with uniquely. Now he's promising Russia a little surprise. I have no idea what that means. Have you?
No, but Politico is reporting that Donald Trump told a fundraiser in 2024 that he told Vladimir Putin on the phone, if you continue to invade Ukraine, I'm going to bomb the you-know-what out of Moscow. And Putin said, I don't believe you. And Trump said, I think he did believe at least 10% of what I said. Trump is reckless and wild, and he is surrounded by enablers. There was a time when Tulsi Gabbard and Vice President Vance were listened to. They're now shunned aside. Trump is totally surrounded exclusively by neocon Zionists who want to fight wars to advance American hegemony and to drive Vladimir Putin from office. This is not the Donald Trump who ran in 2016, and it's certainly not the Donald Trump who ran in 2024.
I mean, Nixon used to play that crazy Nixon game. But at least we had some confidence that Nixon wasn't actually crazy. I'm not sure right at this point in time I'd be prepared to vouch for that in the case of Donald Trump.
I'm sorry to say that I agree with you again, George. The evidence of unrealistic thinking is profound. I mean, just the other day, he said he knew nothing about the stoppage of the delivery of military equipment to Ukraine. He ordered it, of course he knew it, and then when it backfired politically amongst his base, he denied that he knew it. This is not a rational. This is not a way for a rational person to think and behave and expect that he is going to be believed. He is not believed any longer by his base. It will be difficult for him to govern.
Finally, Your Honor, was it just a coincidence that Netanyahu arrived just as the Epstein files were tossed into the bonfire?
I doubt it. I doubt it, since I'm sure that Netanyahu has seen these files. We know that Mossad has them because Epstein gave them to Mossad. If Mossad has them, then Netanyahu has them as well. Here's a question for you. Who is the overlord of whom? Israel over the United States or the United States over Israel? In my view, there is no question but that it's Israel over the United States.
Well, as Donald Trump would say, although he is actually older than Israel, that's an age-old question. Judge Napolitano, an honor and a privilege, as always, to interview you. Thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows. That's an interview that will run and run. Let me take a quick break. Your call's coming up next. Stay tuned.
There's a group of people in Twitter who are daily posting discussions about Gaza, Lebanon, what's happening, news updates, aid for Gaza, and trying to enlist the help of Jordan and France and any other regional entity that will help get more aid into Gaza and all of Palestine, for everyone who suffers. So I want to request that everyone who is listening to this go to your local council meetings and peacefully request that their representatives at the local levels do this, because it works.
Thanks for the call, Pia, in Uruguay. I'm a free man of the city of San Francisco, awarded to me for my work on Palestine, on the steps of City Hall itself. So it was a particular delight for me that the San Francisco Council voted by 8 votes to 3 to demand a ceasefire. And that decision didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of campaigning to force the local authority representatives to vote.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Tonight's poll, who do you believe on Trump and the Epstein files? Trump or Musk? You can vote on my Telegram channel, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, my Twitter, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. If you're watching on the YouTube stream, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, give a thumbs up to the show, and tell all your friends and contacts that we are broadcasting live on these big issues tonight. Well, it doesn't look good for Donald Trump, the poll so far, but you can still alter it. If you want to call the show, it's toll free in the United States and Canada, +1 844 944 3344. It's free of charge in Britain and Ireland, 08081 965522, and the worldwide number is 0044203 966 2625. There's a legend on the line in Oklahoma. It's May on Trump. Welcome back, May. How did it look to you?
Hey, George. I'm in heaven following you discussing Trump with Andrew Napolitano. Oh, my God, I'm so happy.
He's great. I love him so much.
Much love to you all, to your team, and Gayatri, of course, and your family. And I just want to make a mention, as you did, of the people suffering in Texas and in New Mexico due to flooding. And in Oklahoma, you know, we are very much into weather. We have the major meteorological center down in Norman, Oklahoma, which is close to where I live. And Trump is trying to get rid of our defenses against weather. And I just want to say I appreciate you mentioning them, but people need to be aware that this is going to continue until the U.S. government is fully funded for helping us predict and get away from and then get over all this weather problem. But today I wanted to talk about Trump and how he makes decisions. I have finally figured it out. I was sitting the other day watching someone talk about how he flip-flops from hither to yon, and I finally realized that Trump is using a magic 8-ball to make his decisions. Are you familiar with those in the UK?
I'm not. No, tell us.
It's a toy, and it looks like an 8-ball from a billiard or a pool game. And you ask a question, and you turn it upside down, and it has a float in it that gives you an answer to your question. So it'll say, you know, definitely yes, definitely no, ask me again later, unclear. And as far as I can tell, that is the same logic that Trump is using to make all his decisions. And in order to kind of make fun of it, I'm not particularly media savvy. I pretty much am on Facebook, and that's it. But I did set up a little page called Trump's Magic 8-Ball. And every day I ask the Magic 8-Ball a question and post a picture of what it says. So far, it says Trump is going to keep giving Netanyahu war materials to fight Iran, and it says he is going to solve the issue in Ukraine for good. So I think that's pretty much how Trump makes his decisions. And I wanted to share that with you because he apparently has completely lost whatever mind he had to begin with. I totally agree with you on the Epstein files. This is just ridiculous. Does he really think anyone's going to believe that? I guess he does. I guess he thinks he's all powerful. And I'm here to say, and I'm here to join you and everybody else, the emperor has no clothes on. He's as naked as they come. And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure he got naked with some young people, and that is why he so desperately is trying to kill this whole Epstein thing, and he's just making it worse.
But he must just have learned this, May. I mean, the poor communications around this thing is always an indicator that it's a decision that's been made in a hurry and which has not been properly thought through. So I'm wondering when Donald Trump knew that he was implicated in these Epstein files and what it was that he knew. I think that's the big question, because he wouldn't have been banging the Epstein drum all this time and all his minions never done talking about what's in these Epstein files. They're going to blow them all away. And then suddenly to pull the rug, that tells me that it was a late decision, that someone came late to Trump to say, you know, you really don't want to be doing that.
I think it has to do with Elon saying that Trump was in the files. I think Trump has always known that what he did, and Trump has always known that sooner or later he was going to get caught, but he doesn't care because he's gotten away with it so many times before. He's been caught in other scandals. Look at all the lawsuits. Look at all the times he's been convicted. And he just walks away, and people are letting him get away with this stuff. He just figured he'd get away with it again. I don't think there's anything new, George.
Yeah.
I think he just finally said, okay, tell those jerks to tell them we lost the files, we're done with it, and to shut up. Because I'm done hearing about it, and apparently they're not going to let me get away with it this time. So we'll just pretend it never happened. I think that's just what he's decided, because he had to know every single time he was involved with Epstein, he probably did something wrong. That's I don't.
He's you're too young to remember, May, but he's morphing into Roy Cohn, the demonic figure who was his mentor right at the beginning. There's a movie called The Apprentice about the young Donald Trump, and it's eerily coming to pass. May in Oklahoma on Donald Trump. Wonderful as always. Comments, you can leave them on YouTube. Scan the QR code now. Leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Keep it clean. We'll put it on the air. Suzanne Burrell. Trump is a known liar, while Elon appears to defend free speech. Well, he appears to, that's for sure. And there's more free speech now under him than there was before. But there definitely ain't free speech under Elon Musk. I see that the chief executive of X has just abruptly resigned after only 2 years in post. I wonder what that's about and how it affects my legal case against them. I must contact KRW Law in Belfast tomorrow. Ryan Benedetto, Ryan, says making child rape rings great again and victims still being dismissed and killed. Well, Ryan, the victim that was in touch with me yesterday was extremely disturbed by this turn of events. It's like it's been a trigger for her, and she is beside herself with anxiety. Truth Seeker says, if Trump is on the Epstein list. Will the Christian Zionist desert him? Ah! Arcane Eclectic, what a wonderful name, says Elon Musk cannot become president, but he can become a senator or a House member. Why would he want to? Why would he need to? He can be the kingmaker. Concerned Patriot says Judge Napolitano is an earnest and dynamic commentator and a very informed one too. That's an understatement. He is the Supreme Court. On the line in England from Burnley is Tamor on Israel and Iran. Go ahead, Tamor.
Greetings, Mr. Galloway. Now, in the aftermath of the 12-day war between the two countries, I think everybody believes that the war has not finished. It was merely a pause, and Israel will come again whenever it feels it's ready to do so. Now, when I'm trying to connect this to the BRICS. Now, the fate, I suppose, has connected the three pillars of BRICS, which is Iran, Russia, and China, with each other. Their national securities are intertwined, as well as their financial interests. Of course, the East-West corridor between China to Iran. Just a few weeks ago, the train carrying the goods from China reached Iran, and also there's a work going on between the Russia and Iran for a north-south corridor. So that's also in the pipelines. But when it comes to the security aspect of it, I'm a little bit concerned. There have been reports recently where some of the Iran's government officials have expressed disappointment that the air defense systems which they purchased, as well as the Su-35s, it's been a few years and they haven't received them thus far. In fact, it was only a couple of weeks ago that the Su-35s were actually sold to India instead, whereas Iran is in a much greater need, considering what just took place not too long ago. Now, Mr. Putin is a very intelligent person. I mean, I rate him as the most intelligent leader in the world at the present time. And I wonder, does he not realize that, God forbid, if there was a regime change, Russia would have another NATO state on its southern flank, and then all the CIA, MI6, the GCC-backed Wahhabi holy warriors will then descend upon Russia's soft underbelly, which is the Caucasus. If me as a layman can see that, why can't Mr. Putin see that? Now, some people point out that he's got to take care of the 1.2 some million Russian speakers in Israel. But what is more important for Russia's national security? Those 1.2 who, according to even Russians, are not very keen on Russia. I mean, they cite the anti-Semitism that existed during the Tsar's time. So they're no fans and lovers of Russia. And so when you compare that to having a NATO state on your southern flank and your underbelly wide open, I mean, if I can see that, can't Mr. Putin see that? And why is he doing this?
Look, Timur, with respect, you went from saying you'd read reports to accepting the tone and nature of those reports, hook, line, and sinker. And I think that that's a mistake. The jet fighters, I think you're onto something. And it seems that Iran are making a turn, a 180, to China rather than to Russian military technology. And given the performance of the Chinese military technology given to Pakistan in the recent conflict with India, that would seem a smart move. Whether or not Russia was deficient in any way in supplying its military defensive technology, its anti-air missiles, surface-to-air missiles, and so on. I very much doubt that that is true, and I haven't seen any reports of Iranian officials saying that. I've seen lots of reports of people claiming that Iranian officials are saying that, but we are in a sea of disinformation at every turn. And these stories could be wholly and completely untrue. But there is a third angle to it, and I got to thinking, watching the current Iranian president's interview with the master Tucker Carlson the other night. There are really deep political differences inside Iran. I mean, the people I was talking to in Iran just a month ago, a little more, were completely different in their political outlook, at least as expressed on the Tucker Carlson show by the current Iranian president. The people that I was talking to in Iran were bristling with defiance and revolutionary zeal and determined to defend the Palestinians and Gaza and, who knows, one day to liberate Jerusalem. But that's not what I was getting from the Iranian president. So the thing to bear in mind, and this is what Putin did say, that they offered Iran military defensive technology, especially in the anti-aircraft field, but that Iran didn't want it. And that in the strategic partnership that Russia and Iran have now signed, there is no military security commitment on either side, again, according to Putin, because Iran didn't want it. Now, your first thought, as mine, is why on earth would Iran not want it? Well, there are people in powerful positions in Iran who still evidently believe that if you sweet talk the United States of America enough, you might be able to repair your bridges with them, and who knows, hey presto, you'll be in San Francisco before you know it. So there's a lot more dimensions to this question, Timur, than were allowed in your contribution, but thanks for making it. A big thanks to this week's top donors who visited the MOATS.tv website. Gary McCabe, John Fiore, Jason Rattray, Paul Timperley, and Charles E. Cartwright. Thank you very much indeed, all of you, for your generosity. I just wrote a letter to Chester and to Alon to thank them for their extraordinary generosity the week before. Let me take this opportunity to thank you, the big donors, and to ask that the small donors now pile in. MOATS.tv, even if it's $1, €1, or £1. Now, let's stay in England, go to Birmingham, where DJ Scorpion is on the line. DJ, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing, Mr. Galloway?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. I'm coming to Birmingham on Saturday.
Inshallah, inshallah. We're all looking forward to seeing you, Mr. Galloway. Can't wait.
Thank you. Thank you. I've not got the details, but I think we've got a flyer for it. It's Spark Hill Park, isn't it, at 1:30 on Saturday? Yeah, we do. Yes, Saturday the 12th. Marching off at 2:30, 1:30 gather at Spark Hill Park. Loki, myself, and Sheikh Asrar. Yes, sorry to interrupt you, DJ. Go ahead.
So basically, as you know, activist independent movement, we're conducting this march in relation towards Global Day of Action, and we are making the last and final stand for democracy and justice on Saturday. As you know, we're going to be marching for freedom for Palestine and its people and the right for self-determination. We won't be silenced. Now is the time for us to escalate. We need to bring it back to Birmingham, where we have no police repression, or police brutality. We have seen the police brutality in Germany, Netherlands, the Syrian encampment outside the weapons factory. You've seen it happen on January the 17th. You saw it happen over the weekend when the DOJ went particularly, making a protest of what happened last week, decision of banning a certain group. And become bad to Galloway. We need, Birmingham is a place outside of London where it's easy accessible for everybody. It's only a few hours away from everywhere, an hour to 2.5 hours journey. People can come, transportation is easy accessible, parking, there's no problem. It's very, very difficult for people to continuously keep going down to London. You can appreciate from the north, It's a 12-hour day. People to go down there 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to travel, then to come back again. We need to move to take these protests across the country, and we need a mass mobilization. It's all organizations are working together to do demonstrations, but we need to come and have major demonstrations at major cities like Manchester, Birmingham, Bradford, like other places, Liverpool. And we've been working hard with other organizations across the UK. You probably know one of the sisters, Health Workers and Allies, Tabby, came on your show not long ago. We've been working with organizations like that. Up in Liverpool, We Are the People, West Yorkshire for Palestine, Wakefield for Palestine, Leicester Massive, many organizations. We're working together to make it happen, and we need people more than ever now. And we need to step up now. We won't be silenced. Where's our democracy, freedom of speech gone?
I mean, let's go. I'll be there. I'll be there at 1:30 at Sparkhill Park. Me and Loki and Sheikh Asrar are just 3 of the attractions, but the main attraction is to keep up the pressure, not just for the people of Gaza, but as DJ Scorpion says, for our own rights, which are being stripped down in front of us as we speak. And if we go quietly into that good night, we'll only have ourselves to blame when they come for us. Let me take this opportunity to say that my comrade Chris Williamson, former parliamentary colleague of mine and deputy leader of the Workers' Party, Chris and I are currently in discussion with those who support the so-called one-state solution in Palestine. We believe that the so-called two-state solution isn't a solution and moreover isn't going to happen, and that the time has come to raise the stakes and raise the demand of one democratic state between the river and the sea, where every person, Muslim, Christian, Jew, is the equal of the other. I'll be making some important announcements on that new campaign on Saturday in Birmingham, so watch out for it. DJ Scorpion, thank you very much. That's Saturday, Sparkhill Park, 1:30 p.m. The weather forecast is good. It's time. It's time. Now, let me take a quick break, because right after it, we have Shaiel Ben-Ephraim, host of the Israel-Palestine Report, coming up and bringing us a rare point of view from an Israeli citizen. Let's go to a quick break, and then Shaiel Ben-Ephraim is up next. Stay tuned. On the line is a Rose in Texas. Sounds like the beginning of a song. On Californication, which is a song. Rose, welcome to the show.
Fan of the show, transgender fan of the show, and I wanted to briefly address your monologue from last week on Californication, because I almost entirely agree with what you said. Trans women athletes taking medals and records, directing children at nightclubs, and even going to elementary schools themselves, not to mention hormone blockers for children as well. The attack on freedom of speech, not only against conservatives, but anyone who doesn't fall in line with the agenda, rainbow flags on NATO military aircraft, which is certainly doing more to cultivate anti-queer sentiment around the world than there already is. All of that makes me sick. So because I don't believe in incest, bestiality, necrophilia, and pedophilia, I'm basically culturally right-wing by today's standards, even though less than 5 years ago, I'd still be left-wing. So in regards to you and everyone else watching who thinks of me and people like me as the villains right now, you should know that I support the most traditional Muslim, Jewish, Abrahamic believers to be as homophobic and transphobic as they want, because guess what? That's freedom of religion, which is a value we claim to have in the West. Now, my religion, I suppose, is I believe I'm a woman, but guess what? Not everyone has to convert to my religion. Otherwise, we basically have a theocracy, only this theocracy is for the ever-evolving LGBTQIA supercalifragilisticexpialidocious club. So that's all I wanted to get out of my system. Thank you.
Well, Rose, if I could put your call in a glass bottle and ship it around the world, I promise you that I would do so. Crystal clear, beautifully expressed, and I wish you every happiness in life. It is exactly what people who are transgender should be saying. And if they were, they would disappoint the liberal zealots who want to use them as a battering ram against the traditional family values of the rest of us. Beautifully expressed, Rose. I'll never forget it.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
So the poll, who do you believe on Trump and the Epstein files, Trump or Musk? You've got about 40 minutes or so to get your vote in on Telegram, t.me/George Galloway, on my X, on the YouTube community poll, or on the YouTube stream. And as I said earlier, it's not looking great for Donald Trump. Now, Shaiel Ben-Ephraim is the host of the Israel-Palestine Report, and I've been following on social media his work over the last period, and I'm very glad to welcome him onto the mother of all talk shows. Shaiel, thanks for joining us. My first question is the one I asked Judge Napolitano. What do you think Netanyahu spent all that time in the White House discussing? What's going on? Is it something bad for Netanyahu, as some on the pro-Trump wing call it, or is it good news for Netanyahu and therefore bad news for the rest of the world?
Yeah, so I don't know how to answer that. Generally, it's good news for Netanyahu because it looks like, despite the fact that Netanyahu has been under a lot of pressure in the last few days, and if you ask what they're talking about, according to all reports, the focus of all those talks was the ceasefire agreement in Gaza. He wanted to talk about Iran, he wanted to talk about other things, but the focus kept returning to Gaza. And there was an attempt to make him cave on all of his positions, including aid. He wanted the GHF to continue to give out aid, and on that he caved. But he managed to retain two things that are important to him. One is not to give any guarantee that he's going to end the war. I wish there was never that much pressure to begin with. And the other was the Morag line, which is the second line after the Philadelphia line. So if the Philadelphia line is the line of the border between Egypt and Gaza, the Morag line is a parallel line to it. And Netanyahu has been insisting on keeping it for two reasons. Reason one, he wants to sabotage the deal. But reason two, if the deal is not sabotaged, he wants to be able to keep that so that he can build the concentration camp that he's planning on building in southern Gaza beneath that line. After a lot of pressure, according to the latest report from Barak Ravid just an hour ago, they agreed to redeploy the troops in the Morag line somewhat backwards, but keep the Morag line. Why is that good news for Netanyahu? It's good news for Netanyahu because it means that there's likely not going to be a deal. It means he's likely going to be able to keep his coalition. And even if there is a deal, he'll be able to continue with his ethnic cleansing plan and restart the war in 60 days after having gained a few hostages. So unfortunately, the answer is this is pretty good news for Netanyahu. It definitely could have been worse. His nightmare was that Trump says, I'll have an open break with you, including, mean tweets and possible sanctions and whatever, if you don't withdraw. And that didn't happen. It doesn't look like that will happen.
So going back to this Morag line then, And you used the word, and it's absolutely correct, the word you used. They intend on a concentration camp. In fact, some of the torture of the English language in some of the headlines in US and British newspapers has been a wonder to behold. They say that they are going to concentrate the Palestinians in Rafah. But they can't bring themselves to use the word camp, but there will be no appreciable difference. They're making a tiny ghetto for 2 million people, presumably as a prelude to kicking them out altogether when they get the green light for that. What do you say?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. First of all, anyone who says it's not a concentration camp, all you need to do is look at the statement that Israel Katz made. He said that they're going to concentrate everyone in this camp. He just didn't use those words adjacently. He used separate sentences in the same statement. So he's saying it, and there's just no question about that. And of course, there's going to be people who are in the camp, and there's going to be people who are out of the camp. There's going to be people who won't come in, even if they promise them food, even if they try to threaten them in, there will be people who stay out. The people who stay out will all be considered terrorists by the IDF, right? Women, children, whoever's kept out will likely be considered terrorists. Not that different from what's happening now already in areas that were supposed to be evacuated by the population. So the genocide will be even more blatant in this area in the north. And in the south, they're going to try to get the people to leave. The main obstacle to having the people leave, the obstacle they keep running in, is that no one wants to cooperate. The security risks of taking in people from Gaza, some of whom do indeed have ties to terror organizations, but also the PR of helping Israel with ethnic cleansing and genocide is too much for any country to bear so far. And even very poor countries that have been offered a good incentive, like Somaliland, like Libya, have, after thinking about it so far, said no. So yeah, the point is to gather them there and clear them out. There's a good chance that won't happen because of logistical issues. Also, another report I've seen is saying that Trump, from Chaim Levinson in Haaretz, that Trump has lost interest in ethnic cleansing of Gaza. He tried it. He saw that there was a lot of opposition from Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and he's lost interest. So Israel wants to do this. I'm not sure they'll be able to do this, but that's indeed the plan.
I'm glad you made that segue to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, because as I think we know, I think it's a commonplace, Trump loves money and shiny things, especially gold and diamonds and so on. And these places in the Gulf, they've got far more money to give. Never mind Miriam Adelson giving $100 million. The sheikhs of Qatar gave him a floating palace as a new Air Force One, and he came away with hundreds of billions in his chest. In a way, these rich Arab countries are buying Donald Trump's loyalty away from Netanyahu, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a perfect world for Trump, he would be able to satisfy Qatar, the pro-Israel wing of his party, Adelson, and the isolationist wing of his party at the same time. Enjoyed all those benefits. He doesn't want to turn his back on Israel because there's a lot of political benefits to supporting Israel. But if he's forced to choose, at this point, I don't think he's going to choose Israel. I think that the amount of money, as you said, that Qatar, Saudi Arabia have to offer is very compelling. And if they were to force him to choose between them and Israel, he would probably end up choosing them if they did it in a sophisticated enough way. And one of the major reasons for that is not only the money, but also he has people in his administration who would help him do that. People like J.D. Vance, people like Pete Hegseth, they generally support this. They're also enthralled by Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and they don't want the United States to be too involved in foreign entanglements. But what Trump is going to try to do, I wouldn't take this too far, is try to square the circle. Try to find a way to make Israel make enough concessions so that Qatar and Saudi Arabia aren't against them, and so on and so forth. And by the way, there's nothing that revolutionary about that. You know, I wrote my dissertation about U.S. policy towards Israel in the 70s and in the 80s. And at that time, all they were trying to do is find a way to harmonize what they were trying to do with Jordan, what they're trying to do with Egypt, they're trying to do with Saudi Arabia, with Israel, to take away whatever irritant there was to the relationship and square that particular circle. So even though Trump is more corrupt maybe than your, not Nixon, but your Fords, your Carters, your Reagans, the dilemma he finds himself in is not a new one. And the Americans have ways of doing this. And remember that Qatar and Saudi Arabia don't consider Israel to be an enemy. They were closer to Israel in the past, and they're very upset at the genocide, but they share security interests vis-a-vis extreme Wahhabists, vis-a-vis Iran, vis-a-vis all sorts of other threats. So everyone has a general interest in getting along. And that's why I don't think he'll be forced to choose. But if he has to choose, I don't think he's choosing Israel.
Meanwhile, the war drags on. Headless children still being carried out of the rubble. But the IDF suffered quite substantial harm, damage, death just this week in Beit Hanun. What's the current state of morale amongst the conscripts of the IDF, would you say?
Yeah, the IDF morale has never been lower. It's in truly bad state, and the reasons for that are varied. I'll give you all the reasons. The reason number one is not anything to do with genocide or killing Palestinians. The truth is, sadly, most Israelis don't really care. But that is a reason for some people. Some people have done horrible things and don't want to go back because they don't want to do it again. I saw an Israeli soldier talk on Sky News about the things that he did. I've talked to some soldiers myself who never want to go in because of the things that they did. They exist. They're a minority. The most important thing I keep hearing from people who are in there is fatigue. They keep going in and going in and going in again, and they go to the same places, and then they go to the same place, and their friend died here, and then in Bet Hanun, and 8 months later, their friend dies in Bet Hanun again, and they feel like the first friend died for nothing, and the second friend is probably dying for nothing. That's very important. Another thing is that the law to exempt Haredi men that the government is trying to pass is very much undermining morale. The sense that they keep going in over and over again, and the reservists are losing their jobs, they're losing their businesses, they're losing their marriages, they're coming back with PTSD. And then there's all these people who don't serve. That's massively undermining morale. Then there's a lot of other people in this that believe that the government is fighting this war in order to stay in power, which is absolutely true, and is not trying to get back the hostages, and is not trying to defeat Hamas. And that's probably the majority view in Israel right now. Not probably, definitely. And they're not motivated for that reason. And they're also being treated very badly by the army as their mental health deteriorates. A lot of people are going and saying, I can't go in anymore. And it's not for ideological reasons. My mental health, I can't go in. And they're being told to go in anyway, or they're being put in jail, and they're committing suicide. So all these reasons are really lowering morale. The number of people who feel bad about what's happening to the Palestinians is growing. But I think it's the least significant of those reasons so far. Morale is very low. This war or genocide, or it's really both, wars and genocide often go together, and this is one of those cases, can't go on for much longer without the army collapsing. And the IDF's chief of staff, Zamir, is very aware of that and told the ministers that. So far, they don't seem to care as long as it keeps them in power.
What about the political spectrum? It's little known here, Shaiel, that actually Netanyahu is the more moderate of his current cabinet, that people in that cabinet would qualify for a padded cell in most countries, and that given the state of the political spectrum, the place where the electorate now is, if there was a new election, Netanyahu would probably win it again. Is that your view?
Well, I agree with you that Netanyahu is more moderate than a lot of people in his government. And I think that Netanyahu doesn't have particular bloodlust. I know that's going to be surprising to a lot of people, and doesn't have any particular interest in settling Gaza. But he also has no interest in standing up to the people who do, because he wants to stay in power, and he has no morals and no scruples. So he's not losing sleep over any of this. But yes, benvir and smotrich are the ideological core here of what's happening. They're the ones who want ethnic cleansing. They're the ones who want genocide. They're the ones who want settlements. And they're the ones who say that if you ever stop this war, you're not going to have a government. And they make no bones about it. And so Netanyahu goes along with it. I think ideally for him, he'd like to stop the war now, or maybe a couple of weeks ago after the Iran bombing, when he had some achievements to show. And then he can make a case of, look, I saved Israel from this, that, and the other. Because he knows that Gaza is going nowhere good. But those guys are keeping him in the government. Now, as for elections, we don't really know what the results of elections would be because, polls are just a snapshot, so on and so forth. But it looks like Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister, is going to run with his own list. And Bennett will be the kingmaker and will be able to form coalition without Netanyahu if he wants to. And that means that either Bennett can go with the so-called left or liberal Zionists, who are not really liberal in any meaningful way. Your Lapids, your Benny Gantz's, possibly Ram. That's a Arab party that goes with Jews into the government, and maybe the Haredi parties. But it could also come to kind of deal with Netanyahu and bring Netanyahu in as a junior partner in his government, which Netanyahu would probably agree to at this point, because he'd be pretty desperate to avoid investigations. Maybe Bennett would say no government investigation or so on and so forth in exchange for that. So my guess is Netanyahu won't be the next prime minister. There's too many people who are angry at him for October 7th and for the way he's handled Gaza and the hostages and so on and so forth. But it could be that he's part of the government. And either way, a Naftali Bennett government is not much better than Netanyahu's government in terms of human rights or how it would treat Palestinians or anything like that. The only difference would be he's less corrupt, Bennett. He's more likely to listen to the United States than Netanyahu. He'll be less beholden to Smotrich and benvir. So there'll be slight improvement, but not by much. But no, I don't think Netanyahu wins. What Netanyahu's looking at right now, I talked to someone in his staff, and he told me that what Netanyahu is looking at now is to get enough votes for him and his supporters to block a government without him, so that he can force Bennett into bringing him in. And that's possible. That's possible. Winning outright would require 60-something mandates that support him. I think he has about 50. But because the Arabs are excluded from coalitions, not Ram, but the other Arabs, that means there's more room to maneuver for him, and he can block a government.
Shaiel Ben-Ephraim, you've been a revelation. Thanks very much for joining us for the first but not the last time,
so
I hope, on the mother of all talk shows. Wow, that was interesting, don't you think? Who do you believe on the Trump and Epstein files issue, Trump or Musk? Well, 21,000 people have voted, and at this moment in time, it's only 10% for Trump and 90% on average for Elon Musk. Good news for Musk on a night when his chief executive suddenly, peremptorily walked out on him, and it's got everyone wondering why. Someone told me that Grok is on a plane to Argentina. Maybe it's connected to that. Let me take a quick break, then it's your calls, right up to Gayatri's social media news roundup. Stay tuned. Let me say that you can listen to the audio-only version of MOATS on our MOATS podcast, and the numbers on that are going through the roof. Just search MOATS with George Galloway on Apple, Spotify, Google, or whichever platform you listen to your podcasts on. In recent weeks, it's been the #1 political podcast in Benin, Jordan, the Gambia, Qatar, Jamaica, Ghana, Iceland, Malaysia, Singapore, Sweden, and the Philippines. Number one political podcast in all those countries. Truly, truly phenomenal. Do you know that BBC News has lost 40% of its audience in the last 2 years? It's official. And of course, that is the sensible thing to do. But to get people to tune in and change course and listen to a radically different point of view is even more difficult. But it's happening. And the numbers that we are racking up are now in their millions.
You are listening to the mother of all talk shows with George Galloway.
Well, my good wife Gayatri is celebrating because the MOATS podcast reached number one in Indonesia this week. And we're in the charts, top 20 in Ireland, Tunisia, South Africa, and Belgium, newly this week. You can download the MOATS podcast by scanning the QR code on your screen now. And you can listen to the weekly podcast via the moats.tv website. And once you go on the moats.tv website, don't forget to leave a donation. I've been wondering when we were going to conquer Indonesia. Well, our podcast finally has. Big up to all our friends in Indonesia. We have 3 half Indonesian children, and they've asked me to send their best wishes to you all also. Brian is on line 1 in Utah on the Epstein files. Brian, what would you like to say?
How you doing, George? Nice to meet you. I was thinking with Trump being so almost media savvy when it comes to dropping some one-liners to throw off the scent from certain reporters. Do you think Trump genuinely believes that his fan base is going to swallow this, lack of Epstein files, or do you think it's a major chess move on his part where he's maybe trying to undermine the people that may have certain other people in their pockets to allow them to almost drop their guard for him to then still, as his campaign would always say, drain the swamp within Washington? I'm just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, well, first of all, Brian, it's wonderful to meet a Scotsman in Utah. You must tell me offline how you got there and what it's like. But thanks very much for the call. I think we've got to shake ourselves from any residual belief. Not sure there are many believers still who think that Donald Trump is playing 5D chess. He's not even playing checkers. He's playing snakes and ladders, if that's a game that has crossed the Atlantic. He is an imbecile. And if he believes that his base believe what he's now saying, then he's really lost his marbles, lost his bearings, which I've been thinking actually almost from the beginning of this second presidential term. On everything. For example, who did his makeup for that cabinet meeting? Who did his makeup for the meeting with Netanyahu? If your granny turned out with makeup on like that, you'd take away the keys to our vanity case, wouldn't you? He literally had makeup only on half of his face, or fake tan, or whatever it was. He is losing it. He's becoming a shambles. And if he really thinks that anyone buys this, or that they still believe, trust the process, Trump's got a plan to smoke people out, that's all QAnon bollocks. It's now busted. It's defunct. Trump can't play chess. Trump doesn't read books. He's never read Machiavelli. He's only ever read, and speed read at that, the books that he sells the gullible under his own name, though he doesn't write them. Donald Trump is not a chess player. not on any dimension, never mind a fifth. MOATS big donors tonight. Whew, a huge thank you to the top donors who've been on the MOATS.tv website already. Here's the roll of honour. Tariq Lachal, Terry Dawkins, Sabir Hamdan, David Marston, and Harry James Morgan. I've got to tell you, I'm deeply grateful to you. And if everyone can at the end of this show leave $1, €1, and £1, that together with the generosity of those top donors, that'll see us through for another week. Let's go to our old friend Eve in Florida on Epstein. Seems appropriate that you're in Florida, Eve. That's where it all began, yeah?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Right now, in fact, I'm in Idaho, but I want to comment the fundamental question that you asked Judge Napolitano. You asked him, is it a coincidence that the Epstein story and Netanyahu visit coincide? And what I want to say is that you have to compare the Epstein story with the USS Liberty story. The USS Liberty story comes at the beginning of the takeover of Mideast policy of America by Israel. It came right after the assassination of Kennedy, 10 years after Suez Canal, where people have to know that Eisenhower took the party of Egypt against Israel. This is unthinkable today. So that was the time where AIPAC was created as a domestic lobby organization when it should be a foreign lobby organization. And now, even though we have 100% of our representatives, or 99.9, who are controlled by Israel, only 40% of the population support Israel. And the regime change may very well come in America, where Zionism is at the end. And that is why Netanyahu, who, like you mentioned, is not exceptional in Israel, he has a lot of, like Netanyahu, the only advantage of Netanyahu is that he speaks two languages, English and Hebrew, perfectly, and he doesn't say the same thing in English and in Hebrew. But when you listen to RT, where they use right. automatic translator, you can see what they are saying in Hebrew. But we are at the end now, I think, of the total control of the Zionists on the foreign policy. And this is the point I wanted to make.
So what's your answer, Eve, to whether or not it was a coincidence? It would, you could look at it either way. If it is fear of the Epstein-Israel compromat operation that led Trump to abandon the whole case, it would seem particularly thuggish to rub his nose in it by Netanyahu turning up on the day that it's all abandoned. I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are.
No, I think Trump is not at all unpredictable. I think Trump is the last hope for Israel to hold completely the control. But I think that Israel knows that the public and the young people are not behind. And I think that, it's incredible. If I tell you that Mussolini is recommending Hitler for the Nobel Peace Prize, you're going to say, this is crazy. But this is exactly what happened there. I mean, you have a crime against humanity guy who is recommending the person who is paying for the whole thing. So does it answer your question?
At least it would. Yeah, go on. No, it would mean, Eve. Yeah, go on.
No, I wanted. For me, there is no doubt that Donald Trump is a total tool of Israel. And I knew it from the beginning. even though I kind of supported him because I knew that he would expose him. He's not smart enough to hide it.
Fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. As always, Yves is sometimes in Florida, sometimes in Idaho. I wonder what the difference in perspective on these events is in those two states. I wish I'd asked Yves. Comments. Russell says, so Epstein killed himself for nothing? So what is Maxwell in prison for? Two good questions. Karim Salesi says, according to Epstein's attorney, radio interview, Dr. Baden's forensic proved that Epstein's neck had been broken with a powerful karate chop from behind, which had killed him before he had been hanged. And Mega John F1 says those Arab sheikhs may be the reason the Epstein files were closed shut. And Martin Finlay says, George, why do you think Biden's administration didn't expose Trump for these crimes with Epstein? Because the Democrats are on Epstein's books to exactly the same extent. Concerned Patriot says, powerful insider testimony from Shaiel Ben-Ephraim. Interesting to hear objective views from the Israeli side. Omar is on the line in Canada on Grok, who's on a plane to Argentina. Go ahead, Omar.
Hey, George. First of all, it's a pleasure talking to you. You are a voice for peace. If anyone that should deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, I don't think it's Trump, but actually you. That's what I have to say, number one.
Thank you kindly. Thank you.
And number two, I just wanted to see, what are your thoughts about Grok and what happened yesterday on Twitter? It was a total meltdown on Twitter or X, and apparently they simply unleashed Grok AI, and it started spewing a lot of different things.
Well, I'll tell you what, Omar, I followed it with increasing perplexity and increasing levels of disbelief. It started out, and I immediately sent it to my lawyers. There was a question from one of these NAFO dogs, who are the main purveyors of Russian propaganda in the world. And I made the charts, but only at number 9. At the top of the charts, number 1 was Elon Musk. So I immediately sent that to my lawyer because, of course, I'm suing Twitter for falsely labeling me as a KGB agent, a Russian agent. And I was just smiling to myself. This will be useful if it goes to court, if they don't settle out of court. When Grok started to go completely mad, first of all, Elon Musk dropped to number 6 in the list of the biggest KGB mouthpieces in the world. Then he dropped out of the charts altogether. Then Grok started attacking the Zionist movement. Then he started attacking the Jews. Then he started calling himself Hitler, at which point, I presume, the men in white coats carted the artificial intelligence off to a padded cell somewhere in Argentina, where so many Nazis in their time fled. So I've no idea. Rubbish in, rubbish out. It tells you more about the people who programmed Grok than it tells you about the inanimate piece of metal, machinery, which Grok is. Last word to you, Omar. What's your thoughts on it?
Hey, you know what? It was fun to see, not going to lie. It started spewing a lot of different things. Obviously, we're not sure if some of those things are real or not. To me, at least, from what the Zionists are currently doing, the attack that Grok at least attacked some of those big Twitter accounts were deserved. However, again, I guess we'll see how times go and what's going to happen with the new release.
I presume the resignation of the chief executive is connected or it may be connected to something else. Omar in Canada on Grok. Fascinating story. Marilyn is in England, in Hertfordshire, on the Epstein files. Go ahead, Marilyn.
Hi, lovely to speak to you this evening. And I have a couple of questions. You may be able to help me answer them, or the viewers might be able to wade in. But the big thing that perplexes me about the Epstein files is if there were no clients, number one, why did it take them this long to find that out? But really, my main thing is, if there were no clients, who was Ghislaine Maxwell trafficking to? Was Epstein just an insatiable beast who was working his way through women and wanted a constant supply? Because if there were no clients, does that mean we have to go back and look at what Ghislaine Maxwell did and what she is in prison for?
Well, I mean, that's what the Americans used to call the $64,000 question, when $64,000 was a lot more money than it is today. Madeline, you're too young to remember that. But the question that you ask is, well, unanswerable now. If Epstein was just an insatiable beast, why traffic girls from one place to another, from one state to another? Why not have a stable of girls in Florida and another stable in New York? Why all the trafficking around? Why have cameras, secret cameras, in every single room of the townhouse in Manhattan? And why have a control room where the cameras can be operated? What, was he filming himself? That just does not seem likely to me. It's filled with, pregnant with, if you'll forgive the pun, some very big questions. So, for example, why did Ehud Barak, the one-time prime minister, several times defense minister of Israel, visit Epstein in Manhattan 36 times in 4 years? That makes no sense. Why did he smuggle himself into Epstein's house with his face partially covered, if all he was going there for was, I don't want to use the most vulgar word, but I'm sure you get my drift, Marlon. Why would Ehud Barak have to visit Jeffrey Epstein 36 times in 4 years? This is after he had already been convicted of child sex trafficking, of using underage girls for sex and trafficking them. The former Prime Minister of Israel, 36 visits in 4 years? If you believe that was just for a bit of slap and tickle, well, I just don't. I can't believe that. For people like that with unlimited money and moving in the circles that they do, sex is easy to come by. You do not have to traffic young girls, poor girls, sometimes troubled girls, from one part of the country to another. If it was just plain old slap and tickle, but maybe it wasn't just plain old slap and tickle. Maybe they needed girls that would do things with unspeakable beasts that were in themselves unspeakable. Maybe they had to do things that most of us would regard as unnatural. For the video, for the cameras, that's a much more likely. Last word to you, Madeline.
And I guess also, if people are really paying attention, this goes into the bucket for me with many of the other conspiracy theories, as they call them, which normally take about 47.5 years to surface on average. So I'm really hoping that the public this time do not just swallow what they are being told and actually continue to ask questions, because it is time that we hold all of these people who are doing all these shenanigans and thinking we're stupid. It's time we hold them all to account. So lovely to speak to you, and thank you for the opportunity.
And you, amen to all of that, Madeline in Hertfordshire. And the signs are that the American people are roused on this question. Let me tell you, now that I can close the poll, that only 10% of people believe Trump on the Epstein files. 90% believe Elon Musk. Let's go to Manchester, where Loris wants to talk about the Iran nuclear deal. Loris, welcome.
Hi, George. Great show. Great to be on the show. Hopefully you can hear me.
Thank you, mate. Yes, very clear. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to talk about the recent Iran-Israel conflict. I'd like to point out to your audience that it was the first Trump administration with Donald Trump's first term in office that in May 2019 withdrew from the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That was an agreement between 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council: China, France, Russia, the UK, the US, along with the European Union, to monitor levels of uranium enrichment and constrain Iran's nuclear program, as you probably well know. IEA.
Yeah, it was working perfectly.
The IEA, absolutely. The International Atomic Energy Agency monitored the enrichment facilities of Iran, and it was verified by the IAEA in February 2019 that Iran was still abiding by the International Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, which was agreed in 2015. It seems very hypocritical that Israel, which is currently now, for want of a better term, ethnic cleansing in Gaza, which has not signed the non-proliferation treaty of nuclear weapons, despite international pressure to do so, together with the United States, being the only country to actually use the weapon, is accusing Iran of non-compliance and further still attacking Iran.
Exactly. They've got hundreds of nuclear weapons, and Iran doesn't have any. But the country which illegally holds hundreds of nuclear weapons, outside of any treaty or inspection or any international legality, is going to war with the country that doesn't have any. Call me naive, but I would have thought that Israel's action, aided and abetted and joined in the end by the United States, is the most proliferating act there has ever been in the spread of nuclear weapons. I say, and I've said it 100 times, any country which has the capability of getting itself a nuclear weapon, especially one that is in the crosshairs of the US, Britain, France, Israel, and the Western Empire, is foolish not to get themselves a nuclear weapon. Loris, thanks. In Manchester, James is in Florida. Wants to talk about the Trump betrayal. Go ahead, James.
Hello, George. How you doing?
Oh, good, brother. Thank you.
Hello. Good. I just wanted to say that I served 20 years in the United States Army, including a tour in Vietnam, and I voted for President Trump 3 times. And I feel extremely betrayed, angry, and stupid that I trusted him. He's just broken faith with America completely.
Why do you think he's done it, James?
I have no proof of anything, obviously, but I certainly think that somebody, probably Israel, has something on him, and he just has to do what he's told. And I never expected that from him.
With all respect to you, I did expect it from him. He's led exactly the kind of life that would fill a large warehouse with compromising videos. I mean, I think there's nothing he hasn't grabbed. There's nothing he hasn't done. There's no one safe from his predations. You certainly wouldn't let him pick your wife up from the airport, would you? And drive her home? You wouldn't let your daughter go in a car with him? I mean, he's exactly the kind of man that hung out with Epstein for so long. So we should have expected it. But my problem with that thesis, James, is this. He knows everything he did with, by, via, or through Epstein. So he always knew that he had done things. And if he'd done them, he now knows, given the cameras in Manhattan Townhouse, that they're on tape. So he's always known it. So why did he keep on marching people up the Epstein Hill? That there was going to be a nuclear fallout on the Epstein issue, only to pull the rug at the very minute that Netanyahu arrived in Washington. That's what I can't understand, James. Last word to you.
Yes, sir. I agree to all those things, and I can only be ashamed and say that I was completely fooled and extremely naive. And at 75 years old, that's just terrible.
Well, James, I'm sorry for your troubles, and I genuinely mean that. We've all been fooled from somebody sometime. The important thing is not to get fooled again, as the WHO told us all those years ago. Well, my good wife, Gayatri, joins me in the studio now with the social media news roundup. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Well, I want to start with the breaking news within the last hour that U.S. Senator of State Marco Rubio has announced sanctions onto Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Palestine.
She should be the Nobel Peace Prize winner.
She is the one who should be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. But, of course, having previously tried to remove her from the post and failed, this is now their second try. And
what are the sanctions?
Getting the truth out of it. Well, it's just breaking, literally within during the show. So this is just it. They're accusing her of leading a political and economic warfare campaign against both the U.S. and Israel.
Wow. Incredible.
So yeah.
Let me just ask you on that. The UN is based in New York City. She is a high official of the UN. How does it work? Are they going to refuse to allow her to turn up to work? Why does the UN keep putting up with these kind of humiliations?
Well, maybe because the UN is no longer fit for purpose, if it ever was. This is the state of that. Meanwhile, also in the US, today in Washington, Trump hosted a White House lunch for his friends from West Africa, in particular Senegal, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, Mauritania, and Gabon. Now, I can name these countries for you, and I know where they're situated in West Africa, in the Sahel, but Trump less so. He actually said the following: maybe we need to move a little faster because we have a tight schedule. It would be very great if you could just say your name and mention your country. Only to move on after hearing the Liberian leader admiring him, saying, "Oh, that's such beautiful English. Where did you learn to speak such beautiful English?"
He said another line. "Were you educated?" he said, as if the man was sitting there with a bone through his nose. Were you educated? How does he speak English? Because Liberia is an English-speaking country. Liberia was founded by freed American slaves. That's why it's called Liberia, free, liberated. It's an English country. It's a country founded by America, Donald, the America that you are the president of. It's excruciating the way in which he's behaving now, no?
Yeah, along with obviously Senator Ted Cruz before him, who couldn't even say anything about the country they were going to attack, and after all those years of sanctions.
Yeah, he didn't know the population.
Didn't know anything. That's
you know these floods in Texas? Do you know where Cruz was while these people were being swept away in the floods? He was on holiday in Greece. And do you know what he demanded today in the US Senate? In the midst of all this devastation in Texas, another $250 million for Israel. Israel, not Texas. Israel first, always.
Well, I hope at least they had a lovely lunch. Well, staying on Israel, Candy TV reminds us that Trump actually has a subdivision named after him in Israel. And this happened during his first term when he officially recognized the sovereignty of the Golan Heights to Israel. And in gratefulness, Israel named a new settlement after him, calling Trump Heights. Wow. Actually, at the time, no money was allocated yet. It was all just symbol and flags raising. And I don't think they still have it. He just has his name there, but that's all he needs, right? He just wants to see his name everywhere.
In shiny paint. Meretricious was the word invented for Donald Trump.
So, the poll then. Who do you believe on Trump and the Epstein files? Poundland Rod Stewart says, well, you won't get the Epstein files from Elon Musk, even if he were to become the president. The same man in dark suits would take over, as we've seen so many times before. The most powerful man in the world is an illusion.
How amazing.
Antonia Kostarakis says, Trump just said he would resume delivering weapons to Ukraine during some instance with Netanyahu. Trump is getting very good in flip-flopping his way through his presidency. Really, I cannot see any country taking the US government at their word much longer. This Trump will be known as the guy who hastened USA's demise.
I'm going to predict here and now that Trump will not complete this presidential term, that J.D. Vance will be the president before the end of this 4 years. I think Trump is rattling down, his base is rattling down, and if he doesn't shuffle off quietly, then the Republicans can kiss goodbye. I think they can already kiss goodbye to the midterm elections, and they can kiss goodbye to keeping the White House next time. And so the men in suits will whisper in his ear that it's time to retire to, I don't know, Las Vegas. That's probably his kind of place.
Yeah, better listen to them before they send in the jackals.
Yeah, exactly.
Rob the musician says Trump is digging himself into a deeper hole. MAGA is going to turn against him, and people like Dan Bongino are literally putting their careers on the line to save him. Trump. That Iranian TV presenter who turned to her post after they bombed the studio has more balls than the entire US administration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and finally from Majid, he says, never trust a politician from the one-party scheme in any country. That's also a reason why people vote parties like AFD, FPO, Workers' Party, and all other real parties which stand for the average citizens, but the system make it impossible for it to get up.
Well, look, we'll go out for chips. It's a nice night, but I've got two important calls to take before the end of the show. So if you'll bear with me, let's take Keith in Canada first. Keith, what would you like to say?
Hello?
Yes, Keith, go ahead.
Hey, George, how you doing?
All good by the grace of God. What do you want to say?
I call you George the Lion Galloway because I think you're like a lion, brother. I'll tell you this right now. All the good people that listen to you here in Canada, we all wish you could be our Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. I love the people of Canada. I've travelled every part of it, spoken in all the major cities, plus Yellowknife in the Arctic Circle. So a big up to all our friends in Canada.
So I just wanted to call to say, what I thought about you, and I watch you all the time, and I'm with you all the way on everything. I guarantee the reason why they're not bringing out the Epstein files is because Trump is on every paragraph. I guarantee that. Just free Palestine, right?
Thank you very much, Keith. He'll be ex-certificate, definitely in the videos. We've got to take the next call because everybody has to clear the lines for the legend. That is Norma in Bristol. Welcome back, Norma.
Hello, George. I had a phone call yesterday from one of your MOATS, my friend actually, organizer, to see why how I was keeping, and they hadn't heard from me. But I told him that I do suffer very badly with my breathing. And the other thing, really, that the world is getting so complicated, I feel I have no answers, but I never miss listening to any of your shows, George. Good luck to you, because you keep me on the what's going on, really.
I keep you on the straight and narrow. Have you been watching Wimbledon, Norma? I know you're a tennis lover.
Oh, I've loved it. Yes. I watched Wimbledon. I've loved it. Yes.
Very good.
Anyway,
well, look, it's lovely to hear from you again. I'm glad that people are dropping in on you, and be assured that the whole MOATS family, and I know the audience, are always keen to know that you are still listening, watching to the show, and that however difficult your health situation is, that God continues to preserve you. And thanks to you, Norma. That is the last call of the evening, so it's good night from Gayatri and good night from me. It's a nice evening here, and the chip shop is still open. Don't mean computer chips. I don't mean casino chips. I mean potato chips. Not crisps, but chips in an Italian fish and chip shop somewhere near us. See you Sunday, God willing, for the mother of all talk shows.
It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. It's the mother of all talk shows. Go get 'em, George.